take you to the first human system. इससे पहले जो मैंने discussion आपके साथ किया, that was about the body organization. Just to give you a general overview, कि human structure जो है, human body जो है, it's a complex structure made up of multiple systems, and all of those systems are properly coordinated with each other. So from here on, we will going to study the individual systems one by one, and you need to make sure one thing: for every system, you should be able to answer three things. I mean, these are the three learning objectives you should keep in your mind about every lecture. The first thing is that you should know about the system. You should know about the system, that what that system is, and the job of the system, the function of the system. And the second thing is that you should know about the individual components of the system, their structure. And the last but not the least, you should know that the diseases related to every system. That means what happens if something went wrong with any part of the system, or what type of diseases are associated with any system. So same is applicable to a respiratory system as well. So we will going to study the first thing, the first topic, and that is about our respiratory system. The reason why I'm teaching this as your first system is that it is quite relevant at this time due to COVID. You know, we are living in a very different era. हमारे forefathers ने भी नहीं देखा होगा शायद ये. अपनी forefathers ने देखा होगा, हमारे parents ने भी ये वाला time नहीं देखा होगा. They never heard about a time when schools बंद हो गए, universities बंद हो गई, and लोगों को lockdown कर दिया गया. That was the very first time maybe in the 100 years. And so the disease is related to the respiratory system. So if we understand the respiratory system well, we might be able to understand the disease even better. So आपकी जो understanding है COVID के हवाले से, जो precautionary measures you should have, and to understand the disease is somehow related to your understanding with the structure and functions of your respiratory system. So here we go. Let's start with the respiratory system. Remember, there is a term which is called as breathing, and as a biologist, you should be able to distinguish between this thing from the respiratory system. Breathing is a mechanical phenomena. I mean, it's a mechanical activity. It's a mechanical phenomena by which you able to send the air from outside to inside of your lungs, and you expel the air from the lungs into the air. So exchange of gases occur as a result of this mechanical phenomena, which is called as breathing, and that is responsible for taking the gases inside of your lungs, and this phenomena is responsible to expel all the gases present in your lungs. These two are like sometimes people mix these two things together. So breathing is entirely different thing. It's about the physical activity which results in the exchange of gases, and then the gases enters into, you know, then the exchange of gases results in the process of respiration. Or you can let me rephrase that sentence, that the breathing is responsible for the mechanical movement of gases. That's all. But how the gases will going to travel, how the gases will be treated, what are the structures and different components of the respiratory system, how these gases will end up in minute and smaller structures, where the exchange of gases occur between the blood and the air. So we will going to study all these things one by one, and I will try my best to complete this thing in one lecture. So the first, let's start with the mechanical phenomena, or what we call as the breathing. In order to understand that why our lungs or the respiratory, the basic structure is responsible to expel the gases, we need to first know about the different components of our respiratory system, different parts of our respiratory system. Our respiratory system starts from the nose. It starts from the nose. It seems like just an air passageway. It's just like an opening, but it is more than an opening for the respiratory system. It has a definite biology, and it is involved, and its normal function is involved in the efficient execution of respiration. So it's not just like an opening. We can see the nostrils over there, but these are just an opening to the respiratory system. It has its own defined functions. The other is the throat. the air then travels through the throat, and throat is the place where two passageways actually run side by side with each other. One is not showing here is the digestive system. One which is not actually, it should be somewhere here. One which is not showing here is the digestive system. It is taking the food towards the stomach. It is not showing here. It is not related to the respiratory system. That is why it is not here. But the throat is also doing a lot of interesting things. It is responsible to speak. It is responsible to separate the air passageway from the food passageway. You know, we are eating and we are respiring at the same time. So the gases should go to the lungs and food should go to the stomach. And that system is placed inside the inside our throats. So understanding about the throat is important as well. And then the air passageway enters into a very, very big a vessel, which is called as trachea. That vessel is very strong, and that this vessel is further divided into two smaller vessels, and which is called as bronchus. And then these vessels divide to produce very small air passageways, which ended up into grape-like structures. These grape-like structures are called as alveoli. These are called as alveoli. And so the lung biostructure is made up of these small grape-like structures called alveoli. They are hollow structures. That is why overall the lungs are spongy in nature. Are you getting my point? It is overall spongy in nature. That means you can, if you push the lungs, it will contract. If you release the pressure, the lungs will expand. And that is because it is made up of millions of those tiny sac-like structures called alveoli. It is also called as air sacs. So all the lungs are made up of these tiny grape-like structures, and the air is supplied with the help of these air passageway, which actually divide and eventually meet with the alveoli. This is just like a general introduction. I will going to explain one by one about all these things. The floor of the chest cavity, there is a floor present in the chest cavity. It's a very strong muscular structure, and this muscular structure is called as diaphragm. It is called as diaphragm. It's very important structure present at the floor of the chest cavity. You know, the chest cavity is made up of the ribs, and if you can, you know that there are ribs over there like this. I don't want to destroy the drawing at all, but there are ribs over there. The ribs, which is called, this is what we call as the chest cage, the rib cage. So the ribs are making the outer boundary of our chest cavity, and then there is a diaphragm at the floor of the chest cavity. The ribs and the diaphragm together, they are involved in the process of breathing. They are involved in inhaling the gases as in expelling the gases. And interestingly, many of us believe that the lungs can contract and they can relax. And please be very honest and let me know how many of us believes that the lungs can contract and they can relax. Just be very, honest in your approach. Just raise your hands if you believe that the lungs can contract and they can expel. Okay, that is absolutely okay. Okay, you are not a biology major student. Okay, that's interesting. So some of you understand that, some of you know and believe that the lungs can contract and relax by itself. Remember, in humans, if something is not made up of muscles, that stuff will no longer able to contract or relax. Full stop. So if you want some structure to contract or relax, it should be made up of some sort of muscles. If you can recall the last lecture, I was sharing the structure of stomach, and I mentioned one of the muscle over there, smooth muscles. And those smooth muscles are responsible. Those smooth muscles are responsible for the contraction of the stomach. So stomach can contract itself. The answer is yes. Lungs cannot contract itself because lungs are not made up of any sort of muscles. And I just introduced you that the lungs are made up of like small vessels, as well as lots of millions of air sacs. There is also a membrane present over the lungs, and that is called as pleura. There's a membrane present over there. And also there is a fluid between that membrane and the lungs. It actually helps the lungs to protect itself from some external injuries. Now, but coming back to the process of breathing, in order to understand that how lungs are able to contract and relax, and how the lungs are able to expel the gases out, and how they are able to draw the gases inside into the lungs, you need to understand the function of the muscles present in the rib, around the rib cage, and the diaphragm. And you need to create an analogy in your mind about the sponge. If you have a sponge in your home, you can see, अगर एक जैसे duster होता है पुराने ज़माने का, it's like a duster. The sponge, put that sponge into, just contract that sponge by yourself. You can contract the sponge by yourself with your own hands. And when you release the pressure, the sponge again will come back to its original shape. So just push the sponge and put inside the water. You know what will happen? When you start releasing your hands, the sponge will start absorbing water from the environment, from the surrounding. The water will go inside the sponge. And then when you contract the sponge once again, the water will be expelled. When you release, when you contract, the water will be released, will go out from the sponge. When you release your pressure, the water will again go inside the sponge. Lungs work exactly in the same way. If somebody contract the lungs will expel the gases outside into the air. If somebody allows the lungs to expand, a vacuum will be created and the lungs can draw the gases in. So all you need to know that who is responsible to contract the lungs so that it can expel the gases out. So the job is done by the muscles present on your chest cavity and the floor of the chest cavity, which is called as diaphragm. The floor of the chest cavity go up, the ribs move inward. So the inward movement of the ribs and the upside movement of the diaphragm muscles results in the decrease in volume within the chest cavity. And that decrease in volume pushes the lungs, and lungs can expel the gases outside. And once the muscles get itself relaxed, diaphragm goes down, that will create a vacuum and the gases will rush into your lungs. And this is what we call as breathing. There is another question that why it is possible that always oxygen runs inside our lungs, and why it always happens then carbon dioxide gas runs from the lungs into the air. In order to understand that thing, you need to know a little bit of chemistry. Remember, there is no the inside of the lungs. So for example, this is the inside part of the lungs. This is the air. The air is made up of oxygen, carbon dioxide gas, nitrogen, and other things. The lungs is surrounded by the blood. The blood is exchanged by different gases. The blood takes away oxygen from here. The same composition of air is present outside. The same composition of air is present inside the lungs. But oxygen is consumed by the blood. The blood absorbs oxygen from the lungs. So the blood is taking away oxygen from the lungs. That decreases the partial pressure of oxygen only. The nitrogen will not be consumed, so the partial pressure of nitrogen stays same within the lungs, outside the lungs. So the partial pressure of oxygen is decreased within the lungs. That is why the oxygen from the air, when the gases runs into the lungs, the major part of those gases are made up of oxygen, because only the difference of partial pressure exists in case of oxygen. So that is why we inhale oxygen. In opposite way, the blood releases carbon dioxide gas into the lungs. So the partial pressure of carbon dioxide gas is high within the lungs as compared to the air. So when we expel the gases, it is mainly made up of carbon dioxide gas because it is produced within the lungs, and the partial pressure of oxygen within the lungs is higher as compared to the environment. That is why it runs out. To confirm that you are exhaling the carbon dioxide gas, you should blow a candle or a match. When you blow a candle or a match, you know what happens? It actually turns off. You can turn off the candle, you can turn off the match as well, because you are releasing carbon dioxide gas. And the job of the carbon dioxide, one of the property of the carbon dioxide gas is that it actually it does not support burning. It actually stops the process of burn. If you are expelling oxygen, you know what will happen? You accidentally increase the process of burning, but that is not the case. So when the gases run inside our lungs, when the gases runs in, this process is called as inhalation or inspiration. Inspiration, not the inspiration we used to take from the great people. When we expel the gases, it is called exhalation, or sometimes it is called as expiration. So these two things together is called as breathing. That's the one thing you should know. So this is the process of breathing, mechanical process. Now coming back to the different parts of the lungs, So the first thing is let's talk about the nose. Nose is very important. People spend a lot of money sometimes just to fix the shape of their noses. You know, plastic surgery करते हैं, कुछ लोगों की nose बड़ी होती है, कुछ लोगों की nose इतनी लंबी होती है वो हर मामले में उसको अड़ाने की कोशिश करते हैं, हर मामले में अपनी नाक घुसाने की कोशिश करते हैं. So and some people believe that the nose is like an opening, an entrance, nostrils, an entrance opening of the respiratory system. It is doing a lot of wonderful things at the same time. The first thing the nose is doing, you need to remember all those functions of the nose. The nose is I was helping my daughter to learn the spelling of the nose today's morning. So the job of the nose, number one, is to moisten the gases. You know, the nose is usually stay wet. Sometimes we feel that during our flu, but the inside layer of the nose, the cells present within the internal side of the nose, their job is to produce mucus. Their job is to produce a material which helps the air to get moistened. When the air gets wet, it is much easier for that air to exchange gases. So they actually help the gases to get wet. That's the first thing. The nose also contains lots of hairs. The job of those hairs is to trap the dust particles present within the air. The job is to stop or to trap the dust particles. And the last but not the least, it allows the gases to adjust their temperature according to the temperature of the body. Sometimes the temperature outside is quite lower, so within the nose, because of the wet conditions and the time spent in the nose, help that gas to warm a little bit up, so that your body should not experience a shock of temperature. So it helps all these procedures. So when you breathe from your nose, you are using all these biological functions of the nose. But when you are breathing from your throat, you are missing all those functions. And this usually happens when somebody gets the flu. Somebody has a problem with the nose, and he or she is not able to comfortably breathe through the nose. और रात को सोते वक्त flu है तो आप मुंह से सांस लेने की कोशिश करते हैं. You start, breathing from your mouth. In that case, what happens? You आपने note किया होगा that you feel a lot of dryness in your throat because you are missing all those functions which should be executed by the nose. So that is the job of the nose. So after the nose, the air which is now comparatively wet, as well as it is a warmer according to the body's temperature, and a lot of dust particles are removed, it actually enters into the next part. That's what we call as the larynx. That's the larynx. And you also need to remember the upper part, which is called as pharynx. Pharynx is a part which is common between the digestive system as well as with the respiratory system. For your convenience, I'm just drawing a simplified version of that part of the pharynx. So the food particle is supposed to, sorry, I'm drawing somewhere else, okay? So let me use the earlier slide to explain this, okay? So there are, this is the pharynx, the common part. The food particle is supposed to be dropped here and should go to the stomach. When you swallow, the food particle should go to the stomach. When you breathe, the air should go here and enters into the next part, which is called as larynx. And from there is trachea and then to the lungs. This is the common portion present in the throat where the likelihood of, accidentally dropping the food into the larynx might be possible. To protect the food not to go into the larynx, nature has given us like a flap, a big flap here. That flap is called as epiglottis. Epiglottis. Okay. The job of the epiglottis is to protect the larynx during swallowing. When we swallow, the epiglottis protects the larynx. So the food should not drop into the respiratory system. Water should not enter into the respiratory system. Any food particles should not enter into the respiratory system. And all this, the wonderful job is just to protect the respiratory system from the food. जी बरीरा आपने एड्रेस किया.
सर जैसे अगर कोई कहता है कि सांस की नाली में फंस गया खाना, तो वो इसी केस में होता है ना कि मतलब वो लेरिंग्स के थ्रू चला जाएगा.
शाबाश, good point. हम वहीं पर हैं. Now the larynx contains another flaps. These flaps are called as vocal cords. These are called as vocal cords. हम कहते हैं ना कुछ लोगों के vocals बड़े प्यारे हैं, वो बहुत अच्छे सुर में गाते हैं. हमारे में कौन है, हमारे पास कोई है जिसके vocals अच्छे हैं? हम किसी दिन उससे रिक्वेस्ट करेंगे कि हमको गाना सुना दे. कोई हैंड रेस करेगा अच्छे vocals वाला? कौन है बहादुर? अब्बास के वोकल्स अच्छे हैं. ओके अब्बास, हम आपसे रिक्वेस्ट करेंगे. ये गलत है, एंट्रेस किया था. अब्बास, प्लीज हेल्प अस इन सम क्लास, ओके, ड्यूरिंग सम क्लास टू enjoy the quality of your vocals. So the job of these vocal cord is to produce sound. We push our lungs to send the air from the lungs to outside, and that air actually vibrates the vocal cords. When vocal cords vibrates, it produces sound. That was very weird sound, I can tell you, because it's just a sound without any words. It just produced sounds. The words are produced as a result of the wonderful action of our jaw muscles, because of our tongue, and because of our lips. These things contribute in shaping the sound to produce words. And I know we are the only species who can produce words, and we started using the words as a communication tool between each other. And we need to talk, and in order to talk, we need to push our lungs, send the air into the larynx, vibrate our vocal cords, and then we need to use the jaws and the tongue and the cheek muscles to produce words. हमें ऐसे sound produce करने पड़ते, to produce phonics for the words. Now, what happens if you are engulfing something, you're swallowing something, you are drinking water, or you are eating something, and you try to speak, you try to talk. In order to speak, you need to push the air from here, and you need to your epiglottis should give way to the air. And at the same time, if a food is traveling, it is highly likely that some part of the food might be trapped here, might go there. And that is a very bad sign. And that result in what we call as एकदम से हम छींक मारते हैं या खांसी आना शुरू हो जाती है, because the job of the internal lining of the respiratory system is not to let any particle go into the lungs. It suddenly collapse and suddenly push harder to expel that thing out of the respiratory system, and that actually results in severe cough and the trouble which is associated with entry of food over there. So it protects it here. So you need to understand that when you are eating, that cap protects the food and water to go there. So when you are speaking, that cap should be away so that air can go inside and out without any problem. That's very important. So the vocal cords actually help to produce sounds. If you produce sound without moving your jaws, without moving your lips, and without moving your tongue, you will produce wonderful sounds. कौन produce करके दिखाएगा? देखा? So अब आप लोगों को आइडिया हो जाएगा कि वो लोग जो प्रैक्टिस नहीं करते, जिसको कहते हैं रियाज करना, सिंगिंग में जो प्रैक्टिस करते हैं, they usually try to train their vocal cords like this. वो अपने vocal cords से अलग-अलग किस्म के sound produce करते हैं और ये बाद की बात होती है. After that you are supposed to tune those sound and voices in words. Anybody else wants to try? इसका सुर अच्छा है वैसे पास सही कहता है, बात ऐसे गाना सुनना चाहिए. So this is what we need to know about the lung, and after that the air enters into the next part, and that what we call as the trachea. अब आप लोग कुछ बोलना चाहते हैं? कुछ क्वेश्चन है? No. Okay. So here we go. So the air then enters into the trachea, and then it will go to the lungs. And I think I should stop here because I don't want to push you for so many things. You have to understand the nose, you understand the pharynx, and esophagus is the opening of the food pipe. Okay, so this is I showed you two things. The one where the food will go, and this part where the food enters is called as the esophagus. हम इसको digestive system में पढ़ेंगे. Trachea is the other part which carries the air passageway. Larynx, where the vocal cords are there, okay, and then the trachea, the windpipe. Nature has actually made the trachea very strong. In the walls of the trachea there are C-shaped structures, bony structure made up of bones, cartilaginous bones. C-shaped structures are present in the walls of the trachea that actually allows the trachea to stay open. There is chances that we might have some pressure on our chest cavity, but that will not go. The trachea will not going to collapse because of the presence of these C-shaped structures. And you also might be able to understand about the CPR now. If a person is not breathing, that means he will not be able to respire. He will not be able to exchange gases. That means the energy required in the different parts of the body will not be met. The brain might not work properly, and the person might be dead. So that is why the CPR might be a matter of life and death at that time. So all of us should know how to execute that activity which we call as CPR. And आपने देखा होगा बहुत दफा movies में, and the people are like they are putting their hand, their palm on somewhere where the chest cavity actually. Let me draw, and you will be able to feel. All of you should try to feel that thing which I am telling you. There is a strong bone over there, right in the center of our chest, that is called as क्या कहते हैं इसको? I think sternum कहते हैं. And then there are ribs over there like this. The ribs are like this, and then you can feel that the ribs are like they bend like this. So usually you put your palm here. That actually the place where you can actually touch the lungs. You can push the very hard strong bone here called sternum, and then there is like the ribs are like bending here. So you can see that there is a place beneath that strong bone where you can actually reach the diaphragm and actually to the lungs. And this is the place where you can see in the movies, the people are putting their palms like this, and then this, and they're like pushing the person 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that. And they keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. They kept on doing this. You know what that person is doing at that time? Because of some injury, the person is not able to breathe normally. The person is not able to respire normally. That means the exchange of gases is stopped. The brain and the other critical body organs will no longer is able to get more energy from the lungs. So they will going to stop working after like 5 to 10 minutes. So it's a very critical time for that unfortunate person, and we can help that person to have an exchange of gases and to get the critical amount of energy they need in order to survive for a longer period of time, so that you can take that person to the hospital and to the medical people. So what we are doing by CPR, we are pushing the lungs manually, because we know lungs cannot contract itself. So when we push and pressurize the lungs, it will expel the gases. When we releases our pressure, the gases go in and go out. And that is how you manually able to push the process of breathing. And that give the person the most critical time and energy which is required to survive for next some of the period of time. Okay, so I am concluding the things here. I have questions from Barira and Abbas. Ji Abbas, aap pehle puche. And I
Sir,
and then
sir, aren't we pushing the heart?
no,
So that
shabash, very good, very good. We are not. हार्ट को पुश करके, हार्ट को कौन पुश कर सकता है आवाज?
the blood
दिल को
during
कौन,
CPR.
दिल को कौन पुश कर सकता है?
No, I mean we are pushing the rib cage. We are pushing the rib cage. We are
Yes.
pushing the rib cage so that the heart starts pumping again.
No, we can't do anything in case of the heart. Heart के केस में हम सिर्फ ये कर सकते हैं कि if the heart is stop working, you know what we can do? We give an electrical shock to the heart. वो movies में देखते हैं, we gave the electric shock to the heart, so it might start the pumping process once again. In CPR we are not helping the heart at all, we are helping the lungs. That's good, I am happy अगर ये misconception दूर हो गई है. तो दिल से निकाल दो, दिल को पुश करना पॉसिबल नहीं है,